The World Bank has released its India Development Update, which explores what the forecast for the Indian economy is, how the Indian economy is currently doing, and what are the challenges ahead. To help us understand all these multiple facets, we are joined by the India Director of the World Bank, Mr. Auguste. Kouame, thanks very much, sir, for joining us this morning. And my first question to you, that you've released the India Development Update by the World Bank, and just help us understand, for a layman to understand, how is the Indian economy doing and where do you see it place among other South Asian countries?
Thanks, Priyanshi. Thanks for having me on your program. Short answer to your question, Indian economy is doing very well, even compared to the best performing countries in the world and in South Asia in particular. Last year, India's economy grew at 7.2%, which was the second highest growth rate among G20 countries. We're forecasting India's economy to grow at 6.3% in fiscal year 23-24, which is a slight reduction from last year's strong growth. But this slight reduction to 6.3% growth will still make India one of the fastest growing countries in the world. Now, we should remember also that we are in a world that is in a very difficult place today. We have a lot of headwinds. We have geopolitical tensions, we have high inflation, we have high interest rates, which makes it very difficult for individual countries to grow faster than they would have under normal circumstances or within a benign global environment. So within that, I would say, unfriendly global environment, India's growth forecast of 6.3% is quite an achievement if it were to be realized, and we believe it will be realized. We believe India will hit that forecast. In the long term, there is possibility for India to grow even faster, and I'll be happy to talk about what it will take for growth to be even higher in the long term. But for now, let's remember that India is one of the fastest growing economies, at least among major economies in the world, and including compared to other South Asian countries.
Right, and the last point that you mentioned, that we are capable and we have the potential to grow even faster than this rate. So what will it need to be able to achieve that? Of course, you've mentioned we're the fastest growing, and that's great. But we are also the most populated country, which means that the pie is bigger, but there are so many people who want a slice in that pie. Yes. And India's income inequality is one of the steepest across the world. So do you think that income inequality is a major challenge for India, that while it looks great that we are the fastest growing, our economies, I mean, overall the figure looks great, but we are seeing that the top 10% of the country holds more than half of the country's income, which shows you how skewed the benefits of economic growth are. So do you think that's a challenge for India?
Well, it will be a challenge for any country to have this kind of inequality. It will be a challenge for any country, and we all would like to see everyone rise above poverty, right? And that will be the ideal, and I think we should pursue that. There is no world where there is no inequality, but the goal should be to reduce that inequality to the bare minimum. So in the short term, inequality is a challenge. It's not a good thing to have. In the long term, it will be a challenge also, because high inequality today makes it difficult for the economy to grow faster, because inequality, it has been shown through research that after a certain level, inequality is detrimental for growth. Now, there was an aspect to your question which suggests that India needs to grow faster and should grow faster and can grow faster. Yes, India can grow faster. India has strong fundamentals. India's macroeconomic framework is very strong. India has a demographic dividend, or potential demographic dividend, with a young population. 65% of the population is less than 35 years old. In a large population, this provides a strong pool of potential workers. If well educated, if well skilled, and if put to the right jobs, they can power the economy to grow at double digits. India wants to become a high-income country by 2047, which is a fair ambition. It's achievable. Our data shows that for that to be achieved, though, India needs to grow at 8%. Right. And 8% is perfectly doable. We're not talking about 10, 12%, which some countries have achieved in the past, by the way. 8% is perfectly achievable. India has achieved that in the past, maybe not for a long period of time, but India, we think, could achieve 8% and sustain it for about 20 years so that it can achieve high-income country status by 2047. For that to happen, in addition to the strong fundamentals that I talked about, macroeconomic fundamentals, young population, very good public investment being now rolled out, there are a few other things that are needed. The first is the private sector investment needs to pick up because countries grow when the private sector really grows. Right. The government is here to facilitate that process but cannot substitute the private sector's growth potential. It can crowd in, the public investment can crowd in private investment, but ultimately private investment has to be powering the growth process. Now we're seeing a lot of growth coming from private consumption. The next stage will be to, and also a lot of growth coming from public investment as well. But the next stage will be to see growth coming also from private investment. For that to happen, there are a few things. In addition to public investment, you need some policies to stimulate private investment. You need policies to make it easier for the private sector to have access to land, for example, to hire people more easily, to have international connections through the global value chain and through import and export more easily. So there are a number of reforms that could facilitate that. The second big thing that would be needed for growth to reach 8% and be sustained at that level is on the employment side, on the labor side. We hear that firms sometimes struggle to find the right skills at the right place at the right time. Now, there are a lot of skills in India, a lot of Indian skills also globally. With no skills, there is no dearth of skills. But maybe the right skills are not in the right place at the right time. So investing in skilling through the ITIs or through skill centers in states, including in states that are struggling to produce those skills or that are struggling to retain them, investing in that will make it easier for firms to also go to those places, those states, and invest there. And those places may offer the highest possible return on capital if you have the right skill. And that will add to India's growth potential in the long term. So these two things, private investment and the skill side, if they come together, we think that it will be very easy for India to achieve 8% and sustain it.